Hi everybody, and welcome to this, which I think is our eighth Firestarter Forum. So we're just about getting the hang of how to do this now. I think we've got a really good turnout today. We've got lots of old friends who've come, and also quite a lot of new faces. But we're going to have to go at quite a pace because we've got a lot to get through. It's a really good topic, personal sustainability, and this is the plan for the next hour, 75 minutes at tops of our lives. So really quickly, I'm just going to remind everybody how these sessions work. I'm going to do a bit of an intro and talk you through some of my top tips on personal sustainability. Then it's going to be your turn. We're going to go into the breakouts for about 20 minutes. We've got some polls later in the session. And then we're going to hear some of the best ideas from the breakouts. So if we've got some time, we'll do some Q&A. But the most important thing is that everybody gets to have a bit of a chat. So the Zoom stuff's really straightforward. Most people have done this lots of times, generally, and also lots of times with us. We always bring you on muted. You should probably have your video on. Best view is full screen. Don't worry about the breakouts. We'll do all of that for you. And the polls are pretty straightforward, but we always try and do a test poll. Which should already be on your screen now. So this you may or may not know about. The government has launched a Kickstart scheme, which is a program for getting young people into work. But it turns out, as has been pointed out to us by our good friend Paul Phelan, that you have to have 30 people. You have to want to put 30 people through this scheme to be eligible. But what you can do is you can do it as a group. So Paul suggested that maybe Firestarter should offer to be a consortium to help other businesses get up to the 30. So if that is something that is of interest to you, you can see on the poll there that you can just say so. So the question is, would you potentially be interested in investigating the Kickstart scheme as part of a Firestarter consortium? So getting to 30 people to put through this scheme. So the options are yes, definitely sounds worth exploring, possibly, probably not for me, but I might know some people, and definitely not for me. So we're just going to let people roll through the vote, and if it looks like it's something worth us investigating, we'll have a look. We'll also send out some further information about this over the next few days. So interesting, actually, as they're coming through. So I think, great, pretty well everybody's voted. So just for interest, we'll share those results now. They should be coming up on your screen. So actually, across the three more positive options, there's probably enough interest to merit having a look at it. So thank you very much for that. And obviously, more than anything, that got us into the swing of the polls. So let's get going with the proper content. So this is what we when we were sort of promoting this event, this is what we started talking about. So we started saying all these things. So summer's over, kids are back at school. Everybody knows that the furlough scheme is on its way out. There's been 3 or 4 months of pivoting. Everybody's pivoted a bit. People are starting to talk about Christmas. But yes, unfortunately, there's still a global pandemic, and seemingly it's getting worse again. But this assumption that business leaders always know what to do next continues. So we're right back to the challenges of being a business leader at a difficult time, which is incredibly closely linked to the very first forum that we did in April, where our good friend Lisa Zevi, who you can see there, took us through her thoughts on challenges of being the boss during lockdown. And remember, this was right at the beginning. This was so we all kind of thought that we had got through this. And Lisa talked about the growth curve, which is well known to all of us. I think we've all seen this, the different stages of acceptance of change. Sorry, the change curve, not the growth curve. Freudian slip there. And we all saw this, and we kind of thought we'd got through it. But the reality is that it just seems to be going on. And this classic quote here: you think you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but actually it's only some bugger with a torch bringing you more work. pretty well says it all. So did summer give us a false dawn? Did we all kind of get through the last few months and find ourselves in a place where we thought, actually, this is settling down now, only to start thinking now, and this is definitely the feedback I'm getting from talking to people, that it feels like actually keeping going is as much of a challenge as it ever was. So I'm delighted that later Lisa's going to join us. And when once we come out of the breakouts, Lisa's going to join me on a panel to review some of the things that have been talked about. But this is all about sustainability. And actually, sustainability is going to be our topic for the next 3 forums. And we're going to tackle it in 3 different ways. Today, we're talking about personal sustainability, getting through as an individual, getting through as a boss. Next month, we're going to talk about the environmental, the green elements of sustainability, and actually how now more than ever, having a green strategy in your business is an appropriate thing to do. The way people are working has changed significantly, and there's lots of opportunity to embrace this. And then finally, the November session in this series is going to be about business sustainability. So how do we all think about driving our businesses forward into 2021? And this, I hope, really does continue to represent what the forums were initially intended to be about. And I'm not going to read this, but this was the wording from the very first invite that we sent out about the forums, which talked about getting a network of like-minded people together to talk about interesting topics, share experiences, and leverage the fact that we know lots of really great people, both clients, past, current, and future, as well as people who are subject matter experts. But lockdown specifically at the beginning, everybody going through the same experience at the same time. So I think these sessions have been really powerful to continue to give a collective focus on sharing ideas and moving forwards, which gave me a bit of an idea. So this session today, this session on personal sustainability, is kind of I have a vision here of what we might be able to achieve. So this book here, which I read some time ago, called My Morning Routine, is just a collection of around 25 to 30 business leaders talking about their morning routine. And it's like a window on people's lives. And as you can see there, the subtitle of that book is How Successful People Start Every Day Inspired. So I thought maybe we could do a similar thing. We've got a bunch of really interesting people here. And my working title for this is Being the Best Possible Version of Yourself, How Britain's Leaders and Entrepreneurs Powered Through COVID. Tips from 25 business owners on getting through difficult times. So at best, or rather at worst, we might get to a point where as a result of this forum today, we can write a white paper. And Matt Wheeler tends to often do a white paper as a result of these forums. At best, what we might even be able to do is to get a book out of it. And particularly, we might do some podcasts. So our good friend, Dave Harry's also here today, I believe. If ever you need a podcast doing, Dave is your man. If you want to feel like you're being interviewed for Radio 4, do a podcast with Dave. So this is our plan. We're going to see whether we can get some massive inspiration from people today, just by people sharing their resilience tips, their keeping going tips, and just giving a collective access to that. And somebody has to start it off. So I am going to start us off, and I'm going to share turned out I started with 7, I got to 13, and I've got down to 12. These are my 12 tips, and really interesting actually putting these together, because 2 things. Firstly, it just reminded me that actually they're not just COVID things, they're going through life things that I have evolved. And secondly, it just reminds me that half the time I don't do them, and I just need to do them. So I'm going to fly through them at a real pace. So the first one is just remember how lucky you are. So I always think like this. So there's so many examples you could pick, but I picked Nelson Mandela. I am not spending 27 years of my life in a prison, doing hard labor, sleeping on a cell floor, only having one visitor a year. I'm not fighting in the trenches. I'm not sweeping streets. I'm not trying to get across Europe to get on a boat to go to the UK because I'm an asylum seeker. Keeping your challenges in perspective is a really important thing. Second one, so this little story here, the background to this story, the You Chose the Instrument story, is I, as a trumpet player playing in an orchestra, guest conductor came to the orchestra and was talking about a concert we had at the weekend, and one of the double bass players started moaning about the parking arrangements for this concert because he was going to have to carry his bass all the way through the town centre and get to the concert venue, and it was a real hassle and he couldn't park anywhere near it. And the conductor just said, well, you chose the instrument, you could have played the flute. And that is, I always remember that, yeah? So when all is said and done, remember, this is a life you chose the instrument. My next one is understand the success iceberg. So I'm continuing with the musical theme here. This picture here, this glamorous picture here, this is Nicola Benedetti, international famous violinist, hugely successful, aged 16, I think she won Young Musician of the Year, massively sought after, great personality, inspiring children all over the world. She runs the Benedetti Foundation. She gives people access to music who might not normally get it. All round great egg. We move on, and what we see here, this is also Nicola Benedetti, Young Musician of the Year 2004, hugely successful, hugely sought after, running the Benedetti Foundation, inspiring a whole generation of children. What you can see there, you can see the scarring on her neck there, if you look carefully. That comes from doing 12, 13 hours practice a day. If you ever watch a documentary of Nicola Benedetti, you see she gets massively stressed about performances, and she just focuses on sheer hard work. This is the side that you don't see. So this is the point of the success iceberg. By the way, Nicola Benedetti's father, this is my random fact, invented the cling film dispenser, and it was his invention of the cling film dispenser that paid for Nicola Benedetti's, very hard to say that, tuition. So next slide, this is the success iceberg itself, which talks about the fact that what people see is not necessarily what really happens. So you can all read that for yourselves, but understanding that success really does come from all of these other things. You have to keep that in perspective in your life. No one said it would be easy, and indeed you did choose the instrument. So you have to decide what you judge your success by. I did this a long time ago, and in my case, I'm really clear. I judge my success by the laughter in my house and by how easily my children talk to me. I worked that out in 2003, and it has not changed. Everything else is pretty random to me. Though this is simple, it's constant, and it's uncomplicated. Then we keep going. One of my all-time favorite books, and I'm not even going to labor the points I've put on the screen particularly, because the title says it all. Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. It's the subtitle that's the big thing. It's all small stuff. Even on the day you die, there will still be stuff in your inbox. Nothing you're stressing about today will really matter in 6 months' time, and rarely matters in 2 weeks' time. It just keeps things in perspective. If you try and remember what you were stressing about 2 weeks ago, I bet you'll struggle. And this book here is the daddy of all books. So I'm a real cliche. I live Stephen Covey. I live the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I read this book in 2002, and I've been living it ever since. I just keep coming back to these things, and there's nothing wrong with any of them. So it's kept me grounded, and it's kept me boringly consistent. The other couple of things we're going to talk about now is personal rules. I find that having a switching on and a switching off method in my life is really good for resilience. So I will never check emails or phone or anything in the morning before I've had a cup of tea. That's the personal rule. And when I want to switch off, when I want that absolute trigger to switch off, I turn the mail off on my phone. And I find that is such a powerful thing to do. It's a real, like, just swiping that button no offense to good old Firestarter, turning off Firestarter for a weekend or a night or a couple of days is a really powerful thing to do. So you have to have triggers and you have to have a whole operating method. I've got a bunch of things I do. And again, just reminding myself to do them on a consistent basis keeps me strong. So having a morning routine, knowing when I send emails, staying fit, washing up as I go along, metaphorically, not so much actually, having a proper review process, always emptying my inbox at the end of a Friday, treating others as I want to be treated, trying not to say things behind someone's back that I would say to their face. It's just a set of rules that I've developed, and I urge everyone to have their own rules as well and stick to them. The first things first thing, which is the Covey principle, always put first things first. You genuinely have to be proactive about doing it. So this is my diary for this week, and you can see I have is literally in my diary. You probably can't see that too well, but the FTF on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, it's in my diary. It's the first thing I do. I have a first things first list, which is my priorities for my business and my life. And that's the thing I'm doing at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning before the day goes mad. So you have to be really conscious about it. You have to put first things first, and you have to work on your first things first list. Similarly, just having some mantras. So anybody that's ever had any exposure to me will know I say lots of things quite often. The only way to predict the future is to create it. Love that one. If you want to get somewhere, start walking. We'll never do any business talking to ourselves. Things don't get done if people don't do them. And everything's about pipeline. And remember, life is what happens to you whilst you're busy making other plans. So have your own mantras and just stick to them. Keep reminding yourself of the mantras in your life. Last couple, we're nearly there. Have a passion. I have deliberately picked a picture of a very young Queen Elizabeth and a very old Margaret Thatcher. The reason I do this is because these women, I believe, were born very, very close to each other. One of them has a passion, and one of them's dead, and one of them didn't have a passion other than her work. And obviously, the woman who had a passion, Queen Elizabeth, her passion is horses. She loves horses. It's her thing. It's what she wants to be doing. Thatcher, all she wanted to do was her job. And once her job was gone, once that was not the thing in her life, she just faded away and went. So have a passion is critical. And I think most people who know me know that my passion is trumpet playing. And I know actually there's a couple of other, dare I call them, brass players, Dave Harries and Catherine Story, I think are both on this call today, who are both French horn players. And one thing about our passion is you have to totally immerse yourself in it. You can't think about anything else when you're doing it. Having an escapism, a passion that keeps you going, is so critical. And then my final one, which I've saved to last, I think this is the best one. It's a bit Chris O'Riordan, but this is all a bit Chris O'Riordan, is having a personal control document. So all of that stuff that we've just talked about, it's all great stuff, but I think in most people's cases, they have these things, and hopefully we're going to find out about your things as we go through this session presently. But you forget about it. You just don't do it, and you just keep reinventing it. So many, many years ago, I decided I'm just going to write it all down. I'm just going to stick it in a few slides, and I have this thing called a day pack, which all of these key points, not in the form we've just looked at, but all of these key points that drive me, keep me focused, keep me going, I've just documented, and probably twice a week I look at it, and it just reminds me and it keeps me centered. So I'll just really quickly summarize my 12, and then I'm going to hand over to you. So my 12 are: remember how lucky you are. Remember you chose the instrument. Remember the success iceberg. Decide what you judge your success by. Have a really clear, simple. Don't sweat the small stuff. In my case, live Covey. Understand switching on and switching off. Have a personal operating method. Genuinely put things first. Do it proactively. Have some mantras. Have a passion, and actually document it. And have a personal control document that means you don't just forget about these things. be proactive about being the best possible version of yourself. And the interesting thing for me, as I went through this work, so I did this on Sunday. Actually, I put this together, and I have to say I finished it last night. But the fundamentals of my operating model actually are nothing to do with COVID. They're just my method. And actually, what they've done is they've got me through this whole period, and they get me through my life. And I think it's clear once you get your rules in place and your methods in place that it builds your personal resilience and your personal sustainability really well. And I know when I'm doing it well, and I know when I'm not doing it well. So the purpose of me sharing this was to provoke thought, just to get it out there, share some things, make people's juices flow about the things that they do in their lives that really keep them going and really drive their personal sustainability. So now it's your turn. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the breakout sessions. And the way these work, people should know this by now who've been on these calls before. If you haven't, this is how they work. We put you into a smaller breakout room for 20 minutes. You'll be with probably 3, 4, 5 people, depending on how many people we actually ended up getting on. You'll have a facilitator, a Firestarter facilitator in the room, and I think Lisa Zevi's going to be one of our facilitators as well. They will keep us honest. They'll make sure that we don't overspend time on introductions. They'll do time checks, and they'll make sure that everybody has an opportunity to talk and that we stay on time. So the topic for discussion in this breakout is as follows. We'll send this topic to the breakouts as well. What are your secret tips for resilience? The tricks you use to be the best possible version of yourself. And then have that chat amongst you. People share ideas, thoughts, that kind of thing. You can discuss some of the things I've talked about. And then with maybe the last 5 minutes just between you as a group, discuss of all the things you've talked about, what the top 2 or 3 are that have really inspired you, that afterwards we can share with the rest of the forum. And the facilitators will look after the rest. And when we come back, we'll with the facilitators, with Lisa and with some of you, we'll chat about some of these great ideas. So thank you very much. Enjoy the breakouts, and we'll see you in 20 minutes. Right, well, welcome back, everybody. I am very intrigued to find out what you've all been talking about for the last 20 minutes. And our plan now is to get some feedback from you. But first of all, what we're going to do, I'm going to invite Lisa Zevi from Real Business Builders to join me up here. So here is Lisa. Hello, Lisa, how are you?
Hi, yeah, really good, thanks. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad at all. I've just had a very nice 20 minutes drinking coffee, so I'm sure I'm very interested to find out what you guys have been doing. So I thought what we could do, Lisa, is maybe start with your group, actually, yeah, because I'm sure you had an interesting bunch of people. So I thought what we might do, if you could perhaps tell us a little bit about what you guys talked about, and then if there's somebody in the group that you think had this amazing pearl of wisdom, or a couple of pearls of wisdom, then maybe we can get them to join us and share that as well. So what was it like in your world?
Yeah, it was really good. I was with Sean and Ian, Ben, Jim and Derek, and we had a really good discussion. We were talking about a relationship with technology and emails. We were talking about physical separation between work and other things, and just at the end there we were talking about different ways of switching off, so different tips that people had or different activities that they had. It would be very difficult to pick one person that had gems of wisdom. Everybody was coming up with some really interesting yeah, interesting comments. I mean, I think you might want to go to Sean. He was talking about the how he feels like things have changed during COVID in terms of our relationship between the separation of work and home. But yeah, it was a really good discussion. It was great.
Okay, so so shall we do that? Shall we just have like 1 minute of Sean Uther? I presume it's Sean.
Yes.
Yeah. And if Sean, are you happy to join us and just tell us a little bit about those points that you were hello Sean, there he is. You were making in the session. Hi Sean. Oh, classically muted, I think.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
I think, you know, the lines between home and work and technology and free time have become really blurred over the past 5 years anyway, but over the lockdown period have become really blurred. So I think it's important to redefine those boundaries. For me, it reconfirmed that I don't like working from home this whole period. I like the separation. And also, I think it's really important to have the discipline to separate and turn off your mobile phone and not check emails at certain times of the day. We all know this stuff, but it's having the discipline to stick to it. And also, we talked about when you're having downtime, in my case, playing cricket, or a holiday, it's really important to completely turn off everything to do with work, to give your mind that space to have new ideas and new thoughts.
Very good. I mean, and I agree that for me the switching off thing, actually having a physical trigger for switching off is so important, isn't it? So very, very good, excellent. Well, Sean, I think I'm seeing you tomorrow, aren't I?
Yeah.
Believe it or not. So I'm looking forward to that. What we're going to do, Matt Wheeler, I believe, is going to be the voice of God now. And he's going to tell us where else we should go and who else we should talk to. So at some random moment, we should hear the voice of God now.
Hello, this is God here. Bless you, my child. Okay, let's go first off to the group that I was in, and there were some really interesting discussions being held there. I'd like to pick on Nathan King, if I could, please, actually, who was talking a lot about personal cadence and rhythm and structure and so on. And there was some really insightful stuff coming out of that topic. So, Nathan, if you're there, it'd be great if you could share that with the rest of the group.
I've just been given a heads up that Nathan may have actually left us. So he clearly knew that he was going to get picked on that. So
we're going to pick on him.
In that case, not a problem. I will go to super sub Doug Elliott, who had some very interesting and actually quite funny stories to tell about frogs, and and also knowing what time of the day is actually best for you in terms of knowing when you're on top of your game and when you're not on top of your game, which I think is also really insightful as well.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Cool.
So,
Hi Doug. Oh, I'm getting some book envy. Look at you two with all your books.
somebody spotted Covey on my shelves, and I had to point out that that was a present from Chris O'Riordan.
Really?
Yeah. So one of the other books on my shelves is a book called Eat That Frog, and it's a book that basically is about prioritizing the order in which you do things, and sometimes choosing to do the difficult tasks that you want to avoid first, that gets them out of the way and allows you to then focus on the rest of the day. So the story is, if you've got to eat a frog, you should do it at the start of the day, because you know that'll be the worst thing you have to do all day. And if you have to eat 2 frogs, then you should eat the ugly one first. So those are the amusing stories, but that all came from conversations about personal cadence and recognizing that it's, in order to be positive, sometimes you have to understand your own, you have to be self-aware, understand your own working practices, and know when to schedule certain things in. So another one of my examples that I gave was in my former life as a secondary school principal. I moved the whole staff briefing from Monday morning at 8:15 to Wednesday after school, simply because, based on feedback and a bit of self-awareness, Monday morning 8:15 is not when I am at my sunniest best. So we moved that meeting so that it had a more positive feel, and it was more celebratory about the things that had gone right for the week, as well as focusing on the things that we needed to do next. But we had quite a lot of discussion about self-management and whether you do the big tasks first or the little tasks as they come up. And what we sort of settled on was it was important to have your own proactive system and not trying to be somebody else and do things the way that somebody else does it, but to have your own way of prioritizing and regulating and managing yourself and others. That was the key for us.
It's got to work for you, right? And we're all different. I really love that about, you know, the self-awareness and understanding yourself, like what time of day are you better, or what tasks take more of your energy or get you in your kind of flow, in your zone. And we're all different. It's got to yeah, it's got to work for you, right? This whole, we were having the debate about, you know, paper versus digital, and I was saying, well, whatever works for you. You know, there's not one that's better than the other. Each of us has got to find our own way of managing ourselves and managing our time.
I think the other common theme that came out of that self-management piece was that the thing that we have to remember to be is positive, because we can all identify the problems, and we can all talk about what's coming up in the future. And Joseph was talking about their marketing meetings where they had spent too long focusing on upcoming business development rather than celebrating the business that they'd won in the last week or the last month. And I think my own mindset is sometimes we gloss over those, we move on quickly from them, and we forget about them too quickly. And we need to focus on the positives and celebrate the success. That keeps us strong.
Very good. Yeah, we're all very good at. Well, I certainly am very good at getting negative about all the things I haven't done, rather than celebrating all the good things I have done. Just a really final point on that. Exactly the same in that my morning routine book. As I said, it's 25, 30 interesting people's morning routines, and they're all completely different, and that's fine. That's fine.
Yes.
That's fine. What works for you. Excellent. I'm going to go back to God.
How dull would it be if we were all the same?
It would be very dull, wouldn't it? Very dull. I'm going to go back to God. Interesting story there. I'll tell you another time. Yeah, okay, right, let's go back to dog. Yeah.
I think we should now go to Dave Harris, who would like to talk about having an empty head, which I think is quite an interesting perspective, actually. So, Dave, if you're there and happy to talk, it would be great to talk about your empty head.
Yeah. Okay. Am I unmuted? Good. Yeah, empty head. It's something that comes easily to me, I find, having an empty head. But seriously, we had a great chat. Jane O'Gorman, Peter Jackson, Oliver Campshop, and Mark Brennan. Thank you very much for that, and I feel humbled to be their spokesperson. But basically, one thing that came out very strongly was this idea of emptying your head and trying to be able to, you know, face the world with a sort of clear head. And Mark made the point that he uses yoga for this. He uses something called hot yoga, which he does several times a week, 4 times a week, I think, for 90 minutes, and he finds it's brilliant. So there's a practical implementation there of how you can do this and how he chooses to do it. Personally, you know, I traditionally use music, and I spent most of the breakout moaning about the fact that there are no orchestras at the moment. I'm sure Chris will appreciate that one, and I found that very difficult. But you know, there's also cycling. Oliver does a lot of cycling. He was saying that helps him to clear his head and empty his head. There were other things as well that we discussed apart from emptying our heads, like talking through intractable problems. Peter mentioned he uses his family, he uses his wife and his children, his grown-up children, I should say, to help him bounce ideas off, and he finds that he gets an objective viewpoint and things like that. So that can be very good for resilience. So there were lots of other things as well, but those were the sort of things that that kind of bubbled to the top of the pile, I think.
I liked the empty head thing. I
Me
have to
too.
say. It's too easy just to have a head full of stuff all the time, isn't it? You have to sometimes make a conscious effort just to not do that. Super, thank you, Dave. And this is Dave Harries, ladies and gentlemen. So if we do end up doing a bunch of podcasts on this, which it feels as though there might be some legs in, you can probably already tell that Dave has got a great voice for radio. Let's just leave that there. And he really does. If you've ever been interviewed, you genuinely feel like you're on a Radio 4 documentary. It's one of the most amazing things ever. Thank you, Dave. We'll see you soon. Right, back to Matt Wheeler. Where are we going next? We'll do a couple more, just conscious of time.
Okay. I think we've just had a very sneak preview of our next guest, who is, I'd love Martin Clegg to talk a little bit about some of the points that he raised in his group, talking particularly about having faith in remembering your meaningful goals, and keeping things simple. So, Martin, if you would be so kind as to just tell us a little bit about what your group was talking about, that would be fantastic.
Yes, okay. As I said, I've never ever done this kind of thing before, but happy to try my best. To be honest, I struggle with all the various things that came up. I don't plan anything during a day, really. I basically just believe what I'm going to achieve everything in the day that I need to achieve, pretty much. If I don't, then it probably didn't need doing. I think ultimately it's just you need to be happy in your own skin. Now, I take the point that as an owner of a business, you're more, and that's the thing, is you're in control of your own destiny, and I appreciate that. However, somebody, I think it was Sandy, brought up about the difference between working for yourself and working for somebody else. Actually, the first 6 years of my working life, I had exactly the same ethos or whatever as I do now. Maybe that's because that's why I ended up doing my own business. So if you like, I'm not sure I've got any real words of wisdom, except I just enjoy what I do. My own criticism of myself is trying to explain that to other people. I find I just do it. It just comes natural. Not being big-headed about it, but I just find things are relatively easy to do. The only thing that frustrates me is if people can't see the obvious things of how to do them, or don't do them when they need to do them. So that's kind of my contribution.
Lisa, any sort of thoughts on that?
Well,
I've got a
just
couple of thoughts.
thinking, I mean, if you find your own, it sounds to me like you really found your own way of doing things and what really works for you. And I think that a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to find that. And I certainly spend quite a lot of time with my clients helping them find what I call the flow, or you could call it the zone, or your way of doing things. And it sounds to me like you found that, and that's why it feels easy to you. And I think that's great. You know, we've all got to find something that works for us. And it sounds like you've done that. Explaining it to other people is hard because other people are not wired like you. You know, we all have to, I guess, find our own way. But I'm really happy to hear that you've had that philosophy for so long, both as an employee and as a business owner. I think it sounds great.
Okay.
I would add as well is what I hear is it's about trusting yourself, isn't it? And with experience, you learn to trust yourself, and I think so many people, or you should learn. Sounds, Martin, as though you have learned to trust yourself, but so many people don't trust themselves to actually do what they do well. And there's not too many people in this forum here today who are kind of brand new to this. We've all been doing this a good while. We've been around the block, and you should trust that actually what you're doing is good, and you have a methodology for doing it that generally works. I think my big thing, and one of the points I made when I was sort of sharing some of my stuff, is that people have this bad habit of just trying to constantly reinvent it. And actually, you're better off deciding what your operating method is, trusting that it works, and just doing it, and finding a flow. To Lisa's point, actually. So thank you, Martin. I appreciate it, and as a novice, I really appreciate it as well. So thank you for that. I'm going to go to Matt, and I think Matt will do one more. You can pick a good one. Not that the rest aren't good, but pick one of the many ones that you think is a really good one to talk about.
All right. So, I mean, I think there's some common themes coming out about being true to yourself and following your own principles and sticking to your own principles. And I'd like to go to Philip Chalk, if I could, please, because I think he was very much focused on that in his group. So, Philip, it'd be great if you could just share a little bit about your views on being true to yourself.
Yeah, the point. Good morning, all. The point I was making earlier is that I think I spent a number of years in my career having this sort of business persona as opposed to my personal persona, and I think actually maybe it comes with age, but I've realised that actually you should just be true to yourself, be yourself, and accept that in business, if people don't like you or don't agree with you, well, you shouldn't be doing business with them anyway, and just focus on those that will. And so yeah, that was my point on being true to yourself. My other point, which I really believe, and this comes back to that whole resilience piece, is that to me resilience is a muscle and it needs exercise. And I read a book many years ago by a guy called Dr. Paul Stoltz, called The Adversity Quotient. And in essence, what he's saying is that all adversity helps you build that resilience, and you should look at adversity in perhaps a more positive manner, in that if you can get through this particular adversity, then you will come through it stronger, and that in essence builds your resilience going forwards. So yeah, those were the key points that I felt came from our discussion.
Thank you for that. I completely agree. I mean, I think we have an interesting relationship with failure, don't we? We probably learn it as a child, taking exams, we either pass or we fail, but in business doesn't really work like that, and I think it's actually those failures, as you say, it's those sort of knocks, that's actually what we learn. We put things out there, we test, oh, the market doesn't like that, okay, I'll try something different. Business is actually a series of failures, if you want to look like that, but it's actually about testing, isn't it? And that, I agree, that does build your resilience over time.
Brilliant, thank you, Phil, and amazing to see you. It's been a while. Yeah, we must whatever people do these days, talk via a screen or whatever it is people do these days. Great. Fine, thank you very much. So Lisa, any closing comments from you? Any kind of thoughts, having just heard those things, just from this general session?
I think it's really interesting to hear sort of some of the common themes when I was thinking about this for myself. I mean, definitely, I think prioritising your mental and physical health is super important, and then that's come up for a lot of people. I find it really difficult to clear my head, so I'm fascinated by all the things that people say, and what works for me is to do something really difficult, and my chosen thing is running, which I'm rubbish at and is really difficult. But when I go, so I do it all the time, because when I run, it is so hard that I can't think of anything else. So that really clears my head. Diving is the same, but unfortunately the dock that I live near doesn't look particularly pleasant for diving in. But I think just finding a way to clear your head, I think, is so important. A lot of people think that taking time out for themselves is selfish, and I always say, if you're not okay, then how can you possibly run a business, look after a team, serve customers? So I was pleased to hear today a lot of people actually talking about managing themselves and building their own personal resilience, because I think that's really important. I think the second thing would be about a lot of what people have been talking about today is having a system to get your head clear, whatever that might be, whether that's a paper-based, digital, whatever that is. I think, Chris, you talked about open loops at the beginning, all those things in our brain that open up every time we think about maybe possibly one day maybe doing something. Our brain kind of sees all of those as commitments, so having a way of managing that is definitely a way to reduce the stress. And then just staying in your lane. I mean, I think what we were just hearing there about trusting yourself and being in your flow, you know, whatever words you need to, whatever words kind of resonate for you, but just do your thing and have a bit of faith and confidence in what we're doing, and keep your eyes on the prize. I loved your how do you define success? I think a lot of people are chasing other people's, how other people define success. Like, how do you define success, each and every one of us? So they are my thoughts. Really interesting discussion. Really enjoyed being a part of it.
Brilliant. Well, Lisa, as always, an absolute pleasure to have you part of it, and I really thank you for coming. And I know you were tight on time, which was my fault. I completely apologise for giving you a bum steer. So excellent. So we're pretty well rounding off now, and we're kind of in the the zone of slightly overrunning, stroke not quite overrunning. But what we're going to do quickly, just to wrap, is we're going to do some polls. So I think just as a point, my instinct is there's so much interesting content in here that we really should try and explore it a little bit more, because it is, as I felt, it's completely like that my morning routine concept, where everybody has a different mindset, but just getting inside and understanding people's views is inspiring, actually. So I think there's something really interesting in there. So we're just going to do 3 quick questions. The first one is just from my own point of view, slightly self-indulgent. I'm just interested, of those 12 that I mentioned, which ones actually resonated with you the most? Unfortunately, I found out that you can only put 10 on a Zoom poll, so I dumped a couple, or bundled a couple. But what I'd like you to do is just have a quick fly through this list, and just pick 3 of them. You can do multiple choice, so just pick 3 of them that resonated with you. And as you see it, I'll just kind of shout them out. So having a day pack is like just like getting a control document. Never forget how lucky you are. We know that. Remember that you chose the instrument. That you chose this life. Success iceberg. Think of Nicola Benedetti. She's in the BBC Proms trailer at the moment. You'll see her looking amazing. And just think about the other side of it. Decide what you judge your success by. Don't sweat the small stuff. Have personal rules. Genuinely put first things first. And I think if you scroll down, there's a couple more about having a passion and having some mantras. So we'll let you keep going for a little bit. There's a few more people to vote, and then this, I think, feels like this is going to be the basis for my little story. Great. So I think we probably can let that one just, pretty well everybody's voted now. So let's just see what those results are, see what the ones coming out the most are. Interesting. So the never forget how lucky you are. That's good. Keep everything in perspective. And then closely followed by don't sweat the small stuff. So excellent, brilliant. So we'll definitely review that poll later. And then last 2 questions are as follows. They're about your appetite to maybe. So this is completely anonymous, by the way. So this is not a signing up for anything poll. This is just to give us a feel. So question 1 is, so imagine that my morning routine type concept. Do you think you have a short article in you relating to how to be the best possible version of yourself? And there's 3 options. The one we ideally don't want to see too much of is no. And then the rest are yes, definitely, or yes with a bit of guidance. Somebody doesn't want to do it, that's fine. Okay, we just keep going. Okay, everybody has voted, so we will just share these results, and so very positive, actually. So that is that's for us to work out how to do something with this, but it feels like it's a really interesting topic and something I think that people would enjoy. And the final one is just a slight version of that. We're quite interested in doing some podcasts on this. So would you be up for being interviewed for a short podcast on this subject to help us build an interesting collection? Short, I mean, really quite short. So people are flying through, which is really great. Just leave it be. Interesting. Right. So we'll just share these results as well. And the good news is that, yes, actually, it feels like there's plenty of people that would be up for this. So so that's really, really positive. So leave that one with us. I think what we have tried to do today, and obviously clearly in a limited time, it's really difficult to do anything other than scratch the surface of it. But what we've tried to do today is just draw once more on all the great things that people can contribute to this group, to this forum, to help us take our way forwards. Last thing, I've been reliably told I didn't do a brilliant job of explaining the Kickstart scheme earlier, so we will send some information out about that. The general principle is that the government is willing to fund getting under 25s into the workplace, but only if you are, as an organisation, prepared to do it for 30 people. So you can bundle, you can group as an organisation, and it has been suggested to us, Firestarter, that we could be a grouper. So we will send more information out about this. If you, and we just need to glean whether it's something worth us doing or not. So just have a Google it yourselves, have a little investigate, and if you're interested, over the next few weeks, we'll see what we can do about it. So thank you very much. Another really good forum. I understand the conversations in the breakouts were excellent, and I really hope people got something out of it. We will do everything we can to share tips, share information from it. Next month, second Thursday of the month, 9:15, the second one in this series on sustainability, which is all about green sustainability and what we should be doing in our businesses now to embrace things now that COVID is telling us the way we're working is quite different. So thank you very much. Any feedback welcome, and hope to see you all next month. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.